Good morning. This is a special session of the Coconino County Board of Supervisors. I want to welcome everyone to our meeting. And we have one item on our agenda this morning, and that is the canvass of the elections for the November 3rd, 2020 general election. I want to confirm that we have 3 members of the Board of Supervisors, a quorum present. I'm Liz Archuleta, the chair of the board, as well as the representative for District 2. District 1, Art Babbitt.
Hello, Madam Chair. I am here. Thanks.
All right, great. District 3, Supervisor Matt Ryan.
I'm here.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. And that is who we are expecting today in terms of the Board of Supervisors. With that, I am going to turn it over for the report on the canvass of the election results to our county recorder, Patty Hansen.
Good morning, Chair Archuleta and Supervisor Ryan and Supervisor Babbitt and members of the public. I just want to point out you have 10 different items in your packet that you are going to be including in the canvas. Instead of going over each individual item, I have created a slideshow that will touch on the different things. So I hope that will be helpful. But just to name it for the record, you have a summary of the election results that include official write-in candidate results and over and under votes. You have a summary report of all the races that is broken down by counting group, and counting group is the people voting at polling places, people voting early, and then the provisional ballots that were cast. You have an Excel spreadsheet that has all of the precinct results for all the precincts and all of the races. A new report we're reporting this year is the number of federal only ballots that were cast. These are the people that have not shown proof of citizenship. But so they were only allowed to vote in federal races, which this year was president, US Senate, and Congress. And that's broken out by precinct. You have an early voting report. You have a provisional ballots report, an accessibility report. This is a report about how accessible our polling places are that we had on election day. And with that, you also have a report that shows the remediation measures that we put in place to make the locations accessible. You have a training report and then a voter education report. So I'll bring up my slideshow here, and hopefully, if I can figure it out. Are you able to see my screen?
I am not able to see it yet, Recorder Hansen.
Okay. Let me see, share screen. Yeah, it's still not coming up.
Let's see. Oh, hang on. I think there's something starting now. Yes, here it is.
Okay,
it's just delayed this morning a little bit.
Okay, kind of like me. So, okay. Well, the first thing I want to point out, this election was a record-breaking election for Coconino County. We broke records in regards to the number of voters that registered to vote in the county, the number of voters that actually voted. We set records on percent turnout. The number of early ballots that we issued to voters and the number of early ballots that we counted. So on the screen here, you can see the numbers and the percentages. And so we were very happy to see that this was happening. In regards to voter registration, just to show you, this election, we have 90,966 registered voters. And the last time we set a record was the general election in 2018. And as you can see, that we had an increase of 7,727 registered voters between the general election in 2018 and the general election this year. One thing that I want to point out was there was a court case, Mi Familia Vota versus Hobbs, that was asking to have the voter registration deadline changed from October 5th to October 15th. And this went to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit Court did extend the deadline, voter registration deadline. And during that time period, we added 1,426 new registered voters. So that extension did help us increase the number of registered voters for this election. For turnout, we had 73,968 people voting, registered voters, and that was an 81.58% turnout. The previous record for the highest number of voters we had voting was in 2016. And at that time, we had 60,744 people vote. And the previous record in the most recent time period for percent of turnout was in 2008, which was a 78.54% turnout. So as you can see, we really did improve on what has happened in the past. This is just a graph that shows voter turnout in numbers. And as you can see, we have been going up in the number of registered voters just about every year. We had a little decline in 2012, but it just continues to keep going up and up, which is good news. I thought you may be interested in some of the turnout in the different regions in the county. The Flagstaff precincts, which is Flagstaff 1 to 26, had an 83.5% turnout. The turnout of non-reservation precincts that are located outside of those 26 precincts in Flagstaff was an 85.7% turnout. And then the Navajo Nation precincts had almost a 70% turnout. Moncopi, which is our Hopi tribe, the precinct there had a 60.04% turnout, and the Havasupai tribe had a 41.45% turnout. So I thought it was interesting. Usually people think that the city of Flagstaff votes at a higher percentage, but this election we did see that the precincts outside of Flagstaff, not on our reservation precincts, had the highest turnout for the different areas in Flagstaff or in Coconino County. In early voters, we issued 72,195 early ballots. We had 61,440 returned. And that meant that 85% of the early ballots we issued were voted. The turnout overall that was made up of early ballots was 83% of our voters cast their ballot by early ballot this election, and the ones that went to the polling place on election day was 17%. Okay, in regards to early voting, one thing, the issue I want to point out here is we did improve on the number of rejected early ballots that we had to, or the number of ballots we had to reject because of different reasons. And the signature missing on the envelope went down to 31. And I did look at that, and in the past, at the 2016 election, it was 64 ballots we had to reject because the signature was missing. And one thing we did this election to help is we did include with the early ballots that were mailed out a sheet that really stressed the importance of signing the envelope. And we also had our staff, Charlene Slaughter in our office, worked out very diligently on contacting people to try to get this issue resolved so we could count their ballots. I think it also helped that on the Navajo Nation, instead of using ballot drop boxes, we used the drive-up ballot drop-off procedure where there were 2 election officials that received the early ballot from the voters, and they were able to double check to make sure they were signed. So the reason we did that is we did see an increase in the number of early voters, early voters on the Navajo Nation. So we had a lot of voters voting early by mail for the first time, and we were very concerned that we may have to end up rejecting a lot more ballots for not being signed. But I'm very pleased to see that we did not have that many that we had to reject. Okay, I thought you may be interested in this. This is the percent of the electorate that voted early in Coconino County, a comparison. And you can see since 2006 to 2020, we have just steadily had our electorate decide that they wanted to vote by early ballot instead of at the polling places on election day. Now, I think our increase in 2020 may also be contributed to the factor of the COVID pandemic, and we really encouraged our voters to vote safely. And voting early was the safest way for our voters to vote. It was not only safe for our the voters, it's also safe for those members of our community that were working the polling places. So I'm pleased that so many of our voters decided to take advantage of early voting, especially with the COVID pandemic. Okay, just thought I'd give you some information on some of the offices we had and how active they were. Our Flagstaff Mall office, they had 2,544 early voters that cast ballots at the mall office. We had almost 3,000 ballots dropped off, voted early ballots, and they issued 9 provisional ballots. The Flagstaff drive-up service window in Sunnyside, we had 723 voters that took advantage of being able to vote from their vehicles, and we had 1,904 ballots dropped off. Our Tuba City office was very busy too. They issued 1,765 early ballots to voters that voted early and had 1,778 early ballots dropped off and issued 44 provisional ballots. And in this picture, I wanted you to see, we had we moved our early voting outside at the Tuba City office because of the COVID pandemic. It was better because it's in the open air. And our office in the basement of the library at Tuba City was not large enough to provide any type of social distancing. So thank you to our staff at Tuba City that braved all of the different weather and to assist the voters in the safest manner at Tuba City. We had other early voting sites outside of Flagstaff and Tuba City. Page was our busiest early voting site, the Page City Hall. They had 533 voters vote early in their office. And then you can see the other ones, the Sedona City Hall, Williams City Hall, Grand Canyon Superintendent of Schools Office, and the Fredonia Town Hall. This year we added, we've always had in the past 2 ballot drop boxes, and those were located in the parking lot of our 110 East Cherry building, and also on King Street at the Health and Human Services building. But we added 16 more locations this year, and they were put up at places where we had knew they would be secure. Most of them were at fire stations where we knew that there was staff there for hours, or else there was video cameras that on the buildings to make sure everything was secure. I need to thank facilities. They were the ones that made the arrangements for these locations and installed the boxes. And here you can see they were definitely used this year, the different locations where we had them. A total of 27,649 early ballots were dropped off in a drop box, one of our drop boxes across the county. And I'm glad that we were able to put some out in areas outside of Flagstaff. And as you can see, they were utilized by people in those areas too. Okay. I had mentioned earlier the Navajo Nation drive-up drop-off locations. And these are the locations where we had offered this service. And you can see they were also utilized by people in the area. And we had a total of 595 early ballots dropped off there. We also had early voting sites at locations outside of Tuba City. This came about because of a settlement, legal settlement with the Navajo Nation. I think it was in 2019, where they asked us to provide early voting at these locations. So we did have them set up at the locations. Loop had somebody there 5 days a week to receive the voted ballots. Inscription House and Cameron, they were set up 1 day a week for the 3 weeks or 4 weeks that early voting was open. So you can see too, these were utilized by voters in those areas. And one thing we did to try to make things a little bit more fun, and the biggest complaint I get for voting by mail is, I want an I voted sticker. So thanks to Alex and Julian with the Public Information Office, came up with the idea for the signed, sealed, and stickered Saturdays. The 2 Saturdays prior to election, we had service in our parking lot at 110 East Cherry, where people could drive up and drop off their early ballot, or they could drive up and get their I voted sticker. And I was surprised how many people did drive up just to get their sticker. So in the future, I'm hoping that we can work with our vendor to include I voted early stickers in with the ballots. If I had known how many we would have voters we had this year, and that the extra grant money that we got, we could have put it in place, but it was too late by the time the money came. On the one on October 31st, I do want to recognize that we had a band that was playing in the parking lot to make it a little bit more festive. And I want to thank Righteous Harmony. They were a very good jazz band, and it was really too bad that we couldn't have had more people out there to enjoy their music. I also want to thank facilities. We had 3 members of the facilities department that staffed the drop off activity. So I don't know how many, if you're familiar with, we do have special board assistants, and this is where people that are in their homes that need assistance with voting, we send two people of opposite political parties to their homes to be able to assist them with voting. Now, this picture is prior to COVID, so that's why they're not wearing masks. But we did have 16 voters in the county that requested assistance by the special board. And we had our special election boards go out and assist them with voting. Because of COVID, they did not go into people's homes. They did the assistance mostly at the door and were 6 feet away. But we advertised this that it was available, especially on the Navajo Nation. And so it was able to have 16 voters that may not have been able to vote without this assistance. I know Supervisor Ryan's office had put us in contact with a gentleman who lived in a rural area and is visually impaired or blind and had no way of being able to vote. So I appreciated that we were able to assist this gentleman with voting. Also, we had a situation come up on election day because of the COVID pandemic where we had voters that were ill with COVID or were positive, and they had just found out and they needed to vote. So what we were able to do was to assist these 6 voters, and they voted via Zoom. This was a procedure that the Secretary of State's office, working with Maricopa County, was able to develop. In fact, the procedure was challenged in court prior to the election, and the court upheld that no, this was a way that voters should be allowed to be able to be assisted and vote. And so essentially we have 2 election workers that are the ones marking the ballot and speaking with the voter. The voter then tells those 2 election board people how to mark the ballot. They hold the ballot up, and the voter verifies that the votes were marked correctly, and then it's put in the envelope, and the 2 election workers sign the envelope. I'm also happy we were able to assist these voters. And this year we had 9 voters that for the general election that it's from jail. I don't know if you were aware that we have this program, and these are people that are incarcerated but have not gone to trial yet. So they have not lost any voting rights. So they had the right to vote. And I want to thank Sheriff Driscoll and his staff for helping us develop secure procedures and implementing this program for us. Okay, Election Day voting. On Election Day, 11,900 voters went to the polling place and voted. That made up 17% of the total number of people voting. At those, we had 46 voting locations. 3 of them were vote centers and the rest were polling places. At those 46 locations, we had 376 election board workers that staffed the locations. We trained an extra 100 election board workers to fill in if they were needed. And 85 of those workers were county employees. So I want to thank all the departments that allowed their staff to help assist with the elections. And you can see on election day, we're a pretty good size employer for the county. At the 3 vote centers, they're still being very well received, I think, by the public. 21% of our election day voters cast their votes at one of the 3 vote centers. You can see our busiest vote center was at the NAU walk-up Sky Dome, which we expected. And then the Flagstaff Mall and Tuba City High School were pretty close in the number of voters that were there, came there. Okay, provisional ballots. These are ballots that are issued to voters because they have either moved, their ID address didn't match the address they're registered at, they had a name change. Polling place error really was, we had an issue our first thing in the morning in regards to Wi-Fi connection. So it really was not a mistake by our poll workers, but we couldn't figure out what category to put that in. And then administrative error is usually that waiting on something to come in, or, oh no, that's registration and expense, waiting for more information. An MVD office problem, that's where they registered to vote when they got their driver's license, and for some reason we did not get the registration. So it may look bad that we had to reject 56% of our provisional ballots, but on this slide you can see the number one reason we had to reject and not be able to count the provisional ballot was because they were not registered voters in Coconino County. And this, the majority of these came from NAU campus. A lot of students that were registered in other counties or even from other states tried to vote. And because of the Help America Vote Act and the National Voter Registration Act, we cannot turn anyone away who wants to vote if their name does not appear on the registration list and they believe that they should be on the list. We did have 15 people that went to their polling place and voted and had already mailed in an early ballot. So we didn't count their provisional ballot. And 10 of them had addresses outside the county. So the one thing I'm very, very happy about with this is we only had to reject one provisional ballot because they voted in the wrong precinct. And comparing that to the past, I know I have that here. I guess I don't. It has gone down quite a bit from what we had before. Oh, here it is. In 2016, 10% of the early ballots that we had to reject, which was 47, was 20%, which was 154, we had to reject that were voted in the wrong precinct. And this time it was only one. So our training has improved, and I think our new electronic poll books have really helped with that. Because of the, yeah.
Patty, this is Lena.
Oh, yes.
Hi, Lena.
Thank you, Vice Chair Feller. Go ahead.
Yes, so I have a question on that, Patty. The wrong precinct means that if someone is supposed to vote in Tuba City and yet they voted in Cameron, is that, or is it the actual ballot instead of voting Tuba City ballot and use the Cameron ballot? Is it the ballot itself, or is it showing up at different precincts and voting there?
It's the ballot itself. They were issued a ballot for the wrong precinct.
Oh, and was that because of their address, or how did that happen?
It was a poll worker error.
Oh, okay. I just wondered about that. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Yeah, one thing we also have this time is because of our new voting equipment, our ADA accessible voting equipment has all ballot styles on it. So if people went to the wrong polling place, they would still show up in the electronic poll book. And if they voted on the express vote, they could vote at that polling place without having to go to the correct polling place, because they could vote on the express vote, the correct ballot. So that also helped a lot. And this is the first time we've really trained our poll workers on how to have this, use this function. So essentially all of our polling places kind of become mini vote centers, but we don't want to advertise them as vote centers because we only have one express vote per polling place, except at the vote centers. And we wouldn't be able to handle if people decided to just go to any polling place in the county. So,
Recorder Hanson, is that express vote, is that still then regarded as a provisional ballot at that particular polling place then?
good question, Supervisor Archuleta. No, it is not. It's a regular paper ballot. It prints out a paper ballot. So
Okay.
I'm
Well,
going
that's-
to ask, I'm sorry, my phone's ringing in the background, so please
Yes.
ignore it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so, well, that's really great. So this is the first time we've done that.
Yes.
And
And
how many of those did we have?
I don't know how many voted that way.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can't tell you, but I know the feedback that I received from our election day technicians, which most of them are county employees, they said that they loved that because then they didn't have to tell voters, I'm sorry, you're at the wrong place, you have to go here. And it really, I think, helped a lot. And of course, I think the voters liked it. So.
That's a great feature. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Supervisor Feller, did you have something else?
No, it's good. And it's good to learn that the new equipment worked out also. I remember, we were shown how the new equipment and that it wasn't connected to the internet and all the fears that were put out there. So thank you.
And just to point out, we do not use Dominion voting equipment. Ours is Election Systems and Software, ES&S. I know there's some people that have expressed concern about Dominion equipment, which is only used in Maricopa County in Arizona. Okay, because of, we are required to do voter education and report what we did. And because of the grant that we received from the Center for Technology and Civic Life, for the first time, we were able to do a lot of paid advertising and put information out to our voters to help educate. Of course, you may remember we did our 2020 voter guide. We included the additional early voting instruction sheet, which I think was very helpful, as I pointed out earlier, for reminding people they need to sign the envelopes. We ran a lot of radio ads. We ran newspaper ads. We had online ads. And I want to thank Alec Fisher for that. She was a joy to work with and did a lot of work at getting all of that organized. And as usual, we expanded the number of Navajo language ads that we have run like we have in the past, but we did additional subject matter, such as we advertised that special election board. And on the stations where we run our Navajo language ads, we also ran the same ads in English because we wanted to get information out to people that live on the nation and do not speak the Dene language. So I think this was very helpful. We did lots of presentations to organizations, some across the state, a lot of them locally. And we utilized the free media quite a bit. There was lots of radio interviews, press releases, and utilizing social media. So I'm sorry I don't have it all compiled yet on the cost, but all of this money that we spent for these activities are covered by that $614,000 grant that we got. So it will not hit the general fund. And another thing I want to mention is we do a post-election hand audit, and representatives from the Democratic and Republican Party come. And what they do is they have randomly drawn races and polling locations, and then they randomly draw or determine batches of early ballots. And what they do is they hand tally those races that they've drawn in those particular polling places, ballots or early ballots, to make sure it matches what the machine counted. And I think this is something a lot of people are not aware that we do. This has to happen after the day after it starts the election. So I want to thank Esler Musta for coordinating this, and Alyssa McKinley in our office. And it's, I think, very good. I know both political parties have told me they appreciate that we do this, and it makes them feel much better to be able to tell people that everything balanced and came out correctly. And I have to point out, the people that make this all possible and made this record-setting election happen and did it in such a fantastic way. There are election heroes. We had, as I mentioned on an earlier slide, we had 46 election board workers or election boards that worked at our polling locations. We had 8 members of our early voting board. They're the ones that open and count, or not count, they open and they get the ballots ready to go to the counting board. We had 6 people that served on our receiving board. These are the people that take in the ballots on election night and check in all the supplies and make sure everything is coming in correctly. We had 6 members that served on our counting board. We have a snag and ballot duplication board. These are people that if the machine can't read a ballot, like somebody has spilled coffee on their ballot or marked the ballot in a way that the machine can't read it, they duplicate the ballot so it can be counted. Our electronic vote adjudication board were the ones that tallied the write-in votes. Provisional ballot board, these are the people that open the provisional ballots and get them ready to be counted. As I mentioned, our hand audit board from the political parties. And because of all of those ballot boxes that we put out there, we had to have teams of 2 people of opposite political party go to those locations at 7 p.m. on election night to get those ballots and transport them in. And these are all members of the community. These are not, they're essentially, they get paid a stipend, but they really step up to serve their community and the county in these important roles. And I also want to thank the county departments that have helped us. We could not do this election without help from all of these departments. Facilities, as I mentioned, they were the ones that put up the ballot drop boxes. They're also the ones that made arrangements for the 3rd Street drive-up drop-off, the Flagstaff Mall office. The 3 people, as I mentioned, did the drive-up or sign, sealed, and stickered event. Public Works has always been so helpful to us. They're the ones who deliver and pick up all the supplies. Byron Browning has served and helped elections for well over 30 years, if not 40. And he coordinates an awful lot of things for us. In fact, up in Page, they think Byron is part of the election office. He's the face of elections in the northern part of the county. Human Resources had to handle all of the paperwork and the payroll for our temporary employees we hired. IT and GIS assist us. Matt Fowler and his team took such good care of us. I would get a daily report starting the week before election on letting me know that we were safe from the cyber attacks, which were constantly going on across the nation. And GIS always assisted us with any of our mapping issues, our mapping maps that we needed to have. Public affairs, as I mentioned, they were so helpful to us in getting our message out. Health and Human Services, we did have instances where employees got COVID. In fact, we had one polling place on Monday night. It turned out one of the poll workers that came to help set up got a positive test later that evening for COVID, and we had to replace the entire election board, but they were always there to assist us and answer our questions. County Attorney Rose Winkler keeps me out of jail, make sure I'm doing everything legal, and we kept her busy with a lot of court cases this year. The County Treasurer's Office was a great partner in letting us use the space and working with us at the mall and at 3rd Street. The sheriff, on election day, we had a threat liaison officer in our office the entire day. They also helped transport ballots on election night back to Flagstaff, and they were always there to assist us. And also the county manager and administration were there to assist in anything we needed. In fact, they made arrangements, I think, for us to get Esler Musta, who I keep threatening I'm going to keep him chained up in my office and not giving him back to Public Works. So, temporary, we hired a lot of temporary people to work on the election team. And these are the names of the people that worked, and they did an outstanding job. They worked long hours, overtime, on weekends, and we could not have done it without them. And then I have to really commend and recognize the staff in the recorder's office. They all performed way beyond any of my expectations and did an outstanding job. This was a difficult election because so many things were changing and we had to adapt to different things. The increased number of people voting early, the increased voter registration. Also, after election, we're getting angry phone calls from some people that were not happy with the results of the election. And they've been dealing with those people, and they are just really outstanding people and need to be thanked much more than what I'm doing. They are a benefit to the county, and we're lucky to have all of them. And then I have to recognize my champion of voting rights, Congressman John Lewis, who passed away this year. He has inspired me in my life, and it's a great loss to those of us that really do believe that voting is so precious. So that's the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have or anything else you would like to share.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Recorder Hanson. A lot there to certainly digest, and it is the compilation of a whole lot of work and much dedication on your behalf and on the behalf of your entire team and all of our incredible volunteers and of the other county departments that helped make sure that the election, went smoothly. And so really appreciate, the kind comments to the public affairs team, as well as to IT and to the other county staff that worked the elections I'm so glad that, we could participate in that. Let me see if there are any questions from the board at this time about any of the report. Board members?
Yeah, if I may, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Bryan. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Patty, just for the sake of the public record, you feel that you were able to coordinate and manage a fair election, and that both parties had access to critical points during the election to see that we were conducting ourselves in a lawful and objective manner.
Yes, Supervisor Ryan. We bend over backwards to make sure that everything is fair. And one thing, our policy in our office, anything that is shared with one political party is shared with the other political party. And all parts of our election is set up with that bipartisan makeup of how we do things. And so there's always oversight. There's not just one person doing something. And yes, we take security and fairness very, very serious and bend over backwards in all parts of the election. So yes, I think our election was very secure, accurate, and definitely fair.
And I just needed to ask that for the sake of the public record. I see your reports on how you also have validated that, and you have kept us informed of any challenges, how you dealt with them throughout the process, as well as the culmination of the process. But that's the piece that we need to make sure occurred. And Madam Chair and Patty, I have no qualms that I feel that our election process was conducted professionally for the best interest of the public, and that people had fair access. And when there were questions, it was done in an objective manner. So I want to thank, and as noted, it's a monumental task. It's a year-long task to lead up to the final culmination. And Yeoman Chair, I see that you're still standing, Patty, so congratulations on that. And but that's the piece that is we need to canvass. The sake of that is if there were any questions associated with it, that's when it's brought to us at this point. I'm not seeing it, and we have a lot of records to validate what we've done also. So thank you. It meets my measure for what I need to do to say that during the canvassing, the elections were run appropriately, and I thank everybody for their work on this.
Thank you, Supervisor Ryan. Yes, Recorder Hanson, go ahead.
Chair Archuleta, I think because we have two things really to canvass, there should probably be two votes, the one for the county and then the one for the school elections. So because the school board elections are also included in this report.
Yes, and we've been checking in on that just to see what the motion would be. And so I know that County Manager Jane has been working on that here while you've been giving your presentation. And so County Manager Jane, I'm going to turn it over to you. And then I think we'll need to speak a little bit about the district elections, correct?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, thank you, Recorder Hanson and your team for conducting a safe and secure, incredible election. Thank you for your report this morning. Madam Chair and Recorder Hanson, to that point, I have talked to a Deputy County Attorney, Brian Frua, this morning, who's on the call on behalf of Rose Winkler. And the school election was part of the November 3rd general election. So there will be one vote to adopt the canvas as outlined on the agenda. What we do need to do, Madam Chair and Recorder Hanson, is to speak just briefly to the school's results. And I know that Recorder Hanson, I don't know if you're prepared to do that. I know Dr. Lewis is on and is also prepared to share appropriately. But one vote to canvass the election that does include the schools.
Madam Chair, you're muted.
Correct, I am. Mr. Faria, did you want to add anything to that?
I will only say that the Supervisor Jane is absolutely correct. It's all in your materials. The results from the election are both from the schools as well as from the rest of the elections for the general election, the November 3rd general election, are all in your materials and are all included in a singular vote on the canvas. So if any board member has any sort of issues or wishes to separate that out, that would have to be done specifically. Otherwise, it will be one vote to canvass everything.
Okay, great, thank you. Recorder Hanson, I know that we have Superintendent Lewis on the line here. Would you like to give any kind of introduction, Recorder Hanson, or should I hand it over to Superintendent Lewis?
I think you could hand it over to Superintendent Lewis.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Superintendent
Thank you.
Lewis, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome too. Thank you.
So this morning you were going to speak a little bit about the the governing board for the school districts elections.
Yeah, we have two school districts that need to be canvassed as a part of your decision, which is Flagstaff Unified School District and Williams Unified School District. Both of them had 3 positions open, and both districts had more than 3 applicants and that went through the election process. And so the 6 individuals that won from both districts will be a part of the canvass. The other districts had less than what was open. So we announced the vacancies and we had people applied and we went through the appointment process. Most all the districts vacant positions we took care of in-house, and you canvassed that early on because there was no other contender to compete with. So I recommend that the two school district be included in the canvass vote, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes, and the school districts are included in our materials and will be included in the motion of the canvass. And we appreciate you just speaking to specifically which ones those were. And so thank you very much. Let me see if there are any questions. Any questions of the board to Superintendent Lewis? Okay. Well, there are no questions at this time. And so I will bring it back to the board to see if you're prepared to make a motion. And so board members, if there are no further questions, then I would ask for a motion to canvass the election results for the November 3rd, 2020 election. So that'd be basically to approve to, well, basically it's canvass the election. So it'd be a motion to approve that.
Madam Chair, I'm prepared to make the motion. Since
Okay,
canvassing has to do with also accepting, Madam Chair, I will move that to canvass the election results of November 3rd, 2020 general election and accept the canvass.
Second.
I will second the, then third.
Yeah.
Great. Mr. Faria, is that okay? Go ahead.
Yes, just a small clarification for the record. Supervisor Ryan, that motion is consistent with the materials that the board has been provided, correct?
Yes, and clarification. Yeah, we have reports that also substantiate beyond the presentation and includes those reports.
Okay, thank you.
Does a second include that?
Yes.
Supervisor Babbitt, yes. Okay, great. Well, we have a motion and a second, and we also have a third. So all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none opposed, the motion passes unanimously with our deepest gratitude to Recorder Hansen. She also mentioned Isler Musta. She mentioned all the members of her team, all the county team members that participated and from other departments, all our volunteers, the election board, and most of all of the residents, all who participated in the election by actually exercising your right to vote. We thank you very much. Really outstanding to see this record high outcome of the election regarding the number of voters. It's really, really wonderful. Anybody else have any words they'd like to share? Okay, well, on behalf of the board, Supervisor Fowler.
Yes, I'd like to just thank everyone also. I mean, this is such a teamwork. We always talk about how our county really works in partnership and works as a team, and this is a great example. So I really want to thank Patty and her staff and all the networking that was put in place. And I did listen to the radio ads and I thought they were very good, well done. And I did early on want to have, I really questioned the ballot process on Navajo Nation and the way that you had set it up. I have to say that it was very well done. So thank you so much, Recorder Hansen and your team, and just want to just really acknowledge just the amount of work and the undertaking and just the complexity of the election nowadays, and then just the equipment to getting the message out. It's very complex. I think it was just and then in various languages as well. We have the city elections that are going on and the school boards and just really across the board to the national level. So, and getting people to volunteer. I mean, that's a huge undertaking just to have people volunteer to be able to say, I'll take the day, and our own staff volunteering to be out there. I want to thank all of them. And it's a huge network and just creating this coordination, and it seems so seamless and yet just complex. So thank you so much. Just want to thank, and then the candidates, it takes a lot to dedicate yourself to public service. So just want to thank everyone all around. And as it has been, I think it's just a great example of teamwork again. So thank you, Recorder Hansen, and just all your team there.
Thank you, Supervisor Fowler.
Great. Well, thank you all very much on that. With those kind words, we will go ahead and close our meeting, adjourn our meeting, and thank you everyone for participating.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.